I feel like you're trying to like pull me into your misery.
I mean, I think I didn't make any massive fuck ups.
I'm pissed you haven't invited me over for some eggs.
Insanely unhealthy.
I'm like jet lagged as fuck right now, which I appreciate because I asked you to do it.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Zach and Steve's therapy session.
Classic nerd fight.
Fuck that, we're gonna get it done.
All right. Well, welcome back. I mean, I think everybody listening to the podcast, we've had a consistent stream of podcasts going out, but we haven't recorded in like 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. How have you been for the last 2 or 3 weeks?
Good. Holidays, so it's slow time, but yeah, kind of same old. How about you?
I'm good. I'm like jet lagged as fuck right now. I feel like I've been living in this like weird version of reality since I was in Thailand for the last like 2.5 weeks. And yeah, currently still getting through the jet lag. Been like waking up at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. It's made me think more recently. Like, I think every sort of entrepreneur's went through this of like thinking about doing like biphasic or like multiphasic sleep cycles. Because there is just like this weird thing of like being up at 1 a.m. and not it feeling like you've been up at, like, it's like your day starting at 1 a.m. or your day starting at 3 a.m. You have this like totally new version of reality that you're like living in.
Yeah.
I know, to be fair, like I've met like a couple of people that have tried doing like the 5-phase sleeping throughout the day, like the 20 minutes.
Yeah.
No one ever makes it work, but it's always something that you're like, oh, that would be so cool if I could just like take 20-minute naps and just like live.
I know, when I first
fully.
heard about it, because I think the guy that built WordPress did that.
Oh, really?
To build WordPress, he built it all on his own for like 2 years, and he would just do these like 1 hour sleeps or whatever it was, like just many throughout the day, and he only had to sleep like 4 hours per day. And I remember hearing that and like, that sounds amazing.
There's a lot of, I mean, I think Leonardo da Vinci did it. Albert Einstein, it was like a part of his like lifestyle. The biggest part of it that makes it completely fall apart if you have any sort of like social life is like you can't miss those hour sleeps.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh, if I go to bed an hour later, one day out of the week, everybody can make that happen if they have like a normal sleep cycle. But if you're on this type of sleep cycle, from what I've heard, if you miss like one of these naps, you just fall apart and you're completely fucked. So.
Yeah, I think I also heard it's insanely unhealthy.
Yeah, like it's definitely not good for you. But it is cool. Like the other day I woke up at like 1 a.m. like wide awake, like the most wide awake I've ever been. And I like worked for a couple hours, but then started feeling like weird. And I was like, I just need to get out and do something. And so I just like drove around Toronto in the middle of the night, listening to podcasts. And like, yeah, there's this whole world that exists outside of like normal sleeping hours. I don't know. Like it feels like creative. It feels like unique. I don't know. Cool.
I'm going back to 5 a.m. wake ups in the new year. Cause like you get that feeling those first couple hours of the day of just like silence of like the world kind of in like a weird way.
So I actually think, I think there's a huge gap between 4:30 and 5:30, and I actually think 5:30 it's like you almost, or sorry, if you go with 4:30 rather than 5, this is completely anecdotal, but like that extra 30, meaning if you wake up and you have that little like startup period for that 30 minutes, like actually hitting the ground running at 5 a.m. rather than like waking up at 5 a.m. I just feel like that extra 30 minutes, I don't know, it's almost like it's an hour.
The problem is like
you have to get to bed.
Yeah. Like at least 5 a.m. If you're asleep by 10, you got 7 hours. Like that's solid. And 10 is tough. Like, am I gonna start going to bed at 9:30?
Well, when we first met, it was like when we were training for like I'd convinced you to do the Ironman with me, and I was like living in that apartment in like the west end of Toronto. I was doing 4:30 then, and it was also when I had first started foreplay. And I was going to bed like consistently at 9:30. Yeah. And it is hard, like it is weird, especially in summer, right? Like you're going to bed when it gets still light out.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not doing that.
So, but
in the winter it's good.
Winter it's good. And you just feel like you have like way more time in the day. Like I don't think it's actually like a productivity thing. I think it's like it's like stacking the deck in your favor in a lot of ways. Right. And like eliminating all the things that kind of could get in the way if you just like wake up when the rest of the world wakes up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I love this time of the year. Like I love this like goal setting phase. Like part of me hates it because I feel like there's not that much like work to do, and you're kind of like but I feel like you make so much progress like in your head this time of year of just like planning and setting and like reflecting on the year. Same?
It's same for me. We were supposed to have a big goal setting trip, but you're pulling out. Have you done any like goal setting or anything like that up until now?
So today I've done like what's it called, like employee feedback type meetings or whatever. But then I also had our COO do one for me. So I think that was super helpful. So it's all been like super specific, like company wise. I haven't done much personal other than like I want to get back to waking up at 5 a.m.
What time are you waking up right now?
It's like changes so much day to day. Like I find like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going to like 6:30 CrossFit. So I'm like usually up by like 5:30, but then like it shifts during the week and it's all over the map. So yeah. How about you?
I've been doing, so I did a lot of like the business goal setting when I was in Thailand. So I had like a lot of gap, and I wasn't really like working that much on the business while I was there, just because like the time difference and stuff like that. And everybody in the team had very clear kind of like goals to hit before the end of the year. So I had a bunch of time and a nice gap there to do a lot of goal setting. I recently did sort of like a personal vision board. I mean, it's both personal and I was like mentioning before we started recording, so we can go over it if you want.
Yeah, what do you got on there?
Okay, so I've got, so cascading from the most important to the least important, kind of. So the first one is getting to $10 million of ARR by December 31st of 2024.
Big goal.
It's a big goal. It's like it's definitely a stretch, but it's entirely possible. Like we actually we need a significantly slower growth rate than what we saw in 2023. And so currently, like if we continue growing at the same pace, we'll completely obliterate this goal. But obviously we're getting to like a size in which hitting the growth rate we're hitting right now isn't it doesn't happen by accident. It's so there's a lot of things that need to change, everything from how much we charge for our product and like what the average new customer but for us to hit this, we need to hit, like if we don't make any changes to our pricing or anything like that, we essentially need to like add another 6,000 to 7,000 customers this year, which is like a lot. If you even extrapolate like what our free trial to conversion rate is and stuff like that. But again, I think a lot of it will come down to changing our pricing and potentially building a product that is higher value, or to like different higher value like market segments. And like I identified a decent amount of those. We have this like product called Spider that allows you to track every ad a competitor launches. And so like right now, a lot of our customer base is D2C e-commerce brands, which like have like a certain, like whatever, they're running anywhere between 100,000 and like, $5 million a month, maybe on like the super high end on ads per month. But what I could see us potentially doing here is like taking that product. The way I look at it is, so for a D2C e-commerce brand, that has like a certain amount of value, is knowing what your competitors are launching. But if you take that same sort of like, value block and then just apply it to a different business model, the one that I've been like really focusing on right now is like Canadian telecom companies. Like if I go to the major telecom companies in Canada and be like, hey, I'm going to give you a report on a yearly basis or a monthly basis for a year of every ad that your competitor launched, like how much is that worth to you? And it's like a lot more than what we'd be charging self-serve. And so,
but it's a different business model.
It's a different business model. It's like selling like large enterprise plans. But again, like if I want to get to this goal, like these are the kind of stuff,
right?
The kind of stuff that I'll need to do is just like repositioning it, finding new markets and stuff like that. The other thing I have is buying a home in Toronto, ideally like a triplex or something like that. More recently, maybe that will happen this year. Maybe it will be a 2025 thing. I want to buy a Porsche 911. It's been like my dream car for a long time. I want one of those. I want to launch I've had this idea for about a year to create a book called 100 Years of Foreplay, which is like a coffee table book of the best direct response advertising over the last 100 years. Kind of just like really nice images of the book or of the ads and stuff like that. Run a ultra marathon or become an ultra marathon runner, which you've dragged me into. And that's dated for June 15th. So got like 6 months to do that.
Oh shit, it's coming up.
Yeah, we got to start getting those miles in. I've got moving to the new 4-play office. So our current office, our lease is up in somewhere in early Q2 of 2023. And so I just have like a couple like images of like the vibe of the office I want. And so it's like, I want motorcycles in the office. I want it to be like warehouse vibes. And so just some like visual manifestation around that stuff. In terms of like personal like body goals, I want to be like 185 pounds at like 5 to 7% body fat.
That's pretty low.
It's very low. And there's a motorcycle I've always wanted. So like Triumph, like my favorite motorcycle brand. They released this bike called a Triumph Scrambler, which I've had in the past, but they released like a limited edition one for the release of the most recent James Bond movie, like a few years ago. And so they made 250 of these bikes. I've always wanted one, so I'm going to buy one of those this year. And then the last thing is I want to get my private pilot's license in 2024. So those are my goals.
I'm trying to find. I made one of these in 2019, and it's so funny to look back on it. I still have it set up on like my
I remember you showed it to me a long time ago, and it was like ours were like we had saved a bunch of the same images. I remember the one was like, oh, like what duffel bag we wanted, which was like so lame.
Yeah, it's funny how there's like a lot of stuff on there. It's like, oh, yeah, got like some of those things.
Got that stuff.
Like,
yeah.
And a lot of them like weren't yet. It's a funny mix of like very attainable stuff like a duffel bag, and then it's like literally like $100 million yacht next to it. It's like such different levels. Yeah. But no, I think like, I don't know. I think this stuff is like important to do and like, and like, I don't know, just get you excited and like fired up for the year.
I think it's getting you excited, but it's also like making sure you're going in the right direction, right? Like there's always that quote of like, it doesn't actually matter how fast you're going. It matters like if you're going in like the right direction sort of thing. And so if you're actually thinking about like achieving the things you want in life, like having these, essentially it's like a compass that you have at any given time that you can look and be like, so like my kind of thesis around my entire year, because I think you can be presented with new opportunities or new ideas of what you want. And then at the end of the day, those new ideas always seem incredibly attractive once you have them. But you have to realize that every time you have one of those new ideas, you're diverting attention from the thing that you once wanted. And so I think you can kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit of these new things you want or these new ideas you have. And when you get really excited about them and you commit to them, you inherently are giving up all of the time you had to do the thing that you previously wanted. So I think you have to, if you are going to introduce some of those new, hallmarks or like things that you want, I think having this sort of map of being like a pinning it against these things that you once wanted, and like you can let go of some of these things. Like none of the stuff is set in stone, but I think having that reflection period of like, okay, this new thing's coming in. Like, what would I take off this board if I'm going to decide to do this new thing? So
interesting.
Yeah, that's what I got for the new year.
Are you happy with your year?
So it's kind of interesting the time. Like, I was talking to a bunch of friends like today about like stuff, and I had one friend be like, "Hey, dude, like I think you're kind of like a little bit in your own head." So more recently, I like as in like probably 3 to 4 hours ago, I'm a little bit more happy with my year because I had someone kind of like recenter me and be like, "Hey, dude, like if you told yourself in December of 2022 what December of 2023 looked like, you probably would have been really stoked." And the answer is yes. And so, yeah, I'm happy with my year. I think the only thing that I'm like not super stoked on is my progression in terms of like health and like fitness. I've kind of like let some of that stuff go. But in terms of business growth, we like hit almost exactly the growth that I wanted to hit. Like a little bit. So I had a range of like stretch goal and kind of like hygiene. Like if you don't grow this, you fucking failed. And I fell in the bottom quartile of that kind of like so let's just say I wanted to grow $1,000 of MRR. I probably hit, and so the bottom would be like adding, or so let's say $1,000 to $10,000 MRR. I probably hit around like 3,500. So like in terms of the stretch goal being 10.
Okay. I have no idea. You made some progress into the stretch goal.
I'm above the hygiene standard. but not like into the stretch goal range. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I hit the goal.
Right. The hygiene goal.
Yeah. But higher than the hygiene goal.
Yeah.
A little bit more on hygiene. Nice hygiene.
Yeah.
How about you? Are you happy with your year?
Work-wise, not really, actually. Like, I think the first quarter had a lot of like steam. But I think I let myself get a little distracted this year. I think the house, as like much as, you know, I love the house now and whatever, it really distracted from the work stuff.
I wanted to rip into you about this because you've been pushing me to do the house thing, which I appreciate because I asked you to do it. But so like I've been like, okay, I want to do the house thing this year. And I've been at the end of my year being like, okay, well, how much do I need to pay myself from like the business this year to make it happen so that I can like get approved for the size of mortgage I want, all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, fuck, this is starting to feel kind of annoying. And like I have to give up other things to do this one thing. I remembered during the middle of all of this, you were like, this is the worst thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I will never do this ever again. But you're definitely like pushing me to do it. I want to know what the postmortem on it after getting through the war, you know, do you look at it a little bit more favorably?
The whole experience, no, I don't look at the whole experience favorably. It's kind of like coming out of, I mean, I'm over dramatizing it. Like, it's like coming out of something where you're like, in hindsight, you know, at the end of it, it's like, I'm happy with this thing that's come about it. But like, where could I have channeled that energy in a much better way? Like, for sure. So like, yeah, it's just like, I think buying a place is useful if it doesn't add like a ton of stress in your life. If you don't put like a ton of work into it, like we fully, you know,
like yours is like a whole project.
Yeah. And so like, it's just super distracting. And like, oh, this guy's coming by the house at 10 a.m. I got to go by and like see. And if I don't, I want to, because like that's the thing we're building.
And you're
like,
spending much money on it.
Yeah. So I don't want to like, this guy laid this thing wrong and shit, I wasn't there. I should have been there. And it's like, yeah, but I can't be at like a construction site all day.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I'm kind of like, so I'm trying to like recenter in being like, okay, like I don't know if I actually want to take that much money from the business this year. I don't know if I want to pay that much in taxes on it, like all this kind of stuff. And I've kind of just like taken a step back and being like, okay, like why do I want to do this? But then I'm also just like, okay, if I want it, like what would be the most efficient way to get this, like what this is? And it's just like, I could just like rent this house and like for the next year. And
that's
then
the best thing to do. Rent.
And then figure out like, it just like, it's the difference between like hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax that go to the government and being like, oh, I can actually just like rent this house for like whatever, like $7,000 or $8,000 a month. And like, I have the exact same experience with a lot less work. Yeah. But obviously like then you're negating like the investment side of things, but like it means I can do a bunch of other stuff with the money or whatever. And so I don't know. It's like a weirdly like stressful thing. And I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I want this.
No, it's really not worth it. When it's someone else, like you're always harder on yourself.
I feel like you're trying to like pull me into your misery. And you're like, oh yeah, do it, man. Like it's awesome now.
No, I mean, it is kind of awesome now, but it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like when it's someone, you're always harder on yourself. So like, if you said to me like, oh, you know, I was at the house doing this and I missed like this hours of work, like I don't really feel that like pain. But when it's myself, like I know I need to do something and I'm like somewhere else, like, you know, you kind of feel that more.
So what would you do differently if you were to replay 2023? Is there anything you would do different?
I don't know. I think I did a really bad job of like setting urgency within the company. And like that starts with like just getting a bit too like content and just like kind of like satisfied. Which anything you do, like we've put in a lot of work like this last like month especially of like, okay, like we need to double next year. Like so like if someone came up to me, I was saying this to our COO today, like if someone came up to me with a gun to my head and said, if you don't double next year, like you're gonna die, I would find a way to do that. And so like what are those things that I would do, and like just trying to like think through those things. And like I didn't have those like hard like conversations with myself and with like the rest of the team, and like just became like kind of relaxed with like the people on our team and really not pushing them as hard as you need to. And so like now I'm really, really focused on like putting urgency, putting specific growth like targets that if we don't hit, like you're gone. And also reading a lot of like Charlie Munger stuff, like we talked about on a previous episode, but he's so big on like incentives. And he basically said like any second you're spending on other things in a business that you're not thinking about like how you incentivizing people is like wasted time if those aren't set up right. And so now I'm reworking everyone's comp structures to be completely aligned to growth of the company, where like the people, like you're paid it, like if we double next year, you're going to be paid really, really well. If we triple next year, you're going to be paid like amazingly well, like that you won't, so that like totally uncapped bonus structures that are like people can make, you know, if we triple next year, there are many people on the team that'll make like almost $1 million in that year. And so like really aligning everyone on that same goal. I can't say yet because, you know, this next year hasn't happened. So we'll see how it goes, like looking back on this episode. But I think everyone on that same page is important, that so that when I apply that like urgency and that pressure, we're all on the same page. They all want to make more money too. It's not just like, hey, the company needs to make more money or else like we need to make, no, we all want to make more money.
Right.
And so we'll see how that goes. But those are kind of the big like things I've been thinking of.
What's one thing that you would like, you think you did really, really well this year that you wouldn't change? You're like, if I did this again, this is the exact thing that I would do.
It's hard. I've been super critical of myself. So now it's hard to like look back favorably. I mean, I think I didn't make any massive fuck ups.
Right.
And so like, I think I've stayed true to like my core, like principles and like always been like ethical with everyone on our team. I think I've like built trust with everyone I've worked with as like, you know, someone that like takes care of the people that help our company win. And so like, I think I've built like good trust there. I think I have brought in like some good people into the company and just like kind of done whatever it takes to get them, whether that's giving up like certain pieces, you know, of the company that I previously had that like, I think will like lead favorably to the company. That's it, maybe. Okay. That's all I can think of. How about you?
Things I did well this year. I think what I did really well is I didn't celebrate wins at all for myself. Like, I think I stayed focused on like the long-term mission of like winning the war and like really didn't allow myself to get distracted by like winning small battles. I think that led to a general dissatisfaction in my personal life, but had it like led to a bunch of rewards. I've stayed like incredibly frugal personally throughout the entire time. Like this last year, you know, my lifestyle could have inflated a lot. And I could have changed it in a way that would have been like just a lot of fun. But, and like, I think I did a really good job of being like a little bit more stoic and just being like, I'm just working to work, not to like always just like reap rewards. I think I need to like, I think I might have overcorrected like a little bit. Like I had like certain areas of my life and I'm just like, I should just be like fixing this with money or whatever it is. Right. And like being like a little bit more happy. But I think I'm like proud of myself in like where in previous businesses and stuff like that, I might have just like gone a little bit more liberal, like how I was living or like things I was doing. And I think I've just been like very focused and on like a very specific mission and not like getting too distracted. So I think I've done that really, really well. In terms of the stuff that I didn't do well this year, I think like I had mentioned like the health piece. You know, like I was watching. I think it's kind of funny. Like the thing I did really well and the thing that I did really bad are almost like the same thing. I was watching a video of like Brian Johnson, like the guy that's trying to reverse his aging. Yeah. And someone had asked him a question, which was, "Hey man, like it's cool that you're doing all this stuff right now, which is like putting your body first, and like you're only, you really care about Brian Johnson. And then, but the guy was like, you made $800 million before you ever took care of yourself. If you were to do it again, would you do it the same way? Do you think it's important to do that? And he had like a really good line. He was just like, I obviously did it, and so I can't tell you to not do it the way that I did it. That would be silly. And I'm happy with my life and all the things I'm working on right now. He's just like, but he kind of wanted to shift the narrative a little bit, that you don't need to martyr yourself in the process. And so I think that's what I potentially did a little bit. Like there's a lot of areas where I just like chose the thing that was good. Not just didn't lead to happiness, but like actually had tangible, tangible sort of milestones that led to like unhappiness.
Right.
And so I just think I might have overcorrected a little bit.
Right.
Which again, it's weird because I want to change it, but I wouldn't have changed it this year. So like,
yeah.
And then I think I got a little bit too excited about building new product than doubling down on the thing that people loved us for.
Right.
But then you can also make the argument that if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't be innovating. So it's like, maybe like with hindsight, it was the wrong thing to do. But I also I'm moving forward with like that knowledge, and so like now I'm like doubling down on like a lot of the stuff that people love us for, and I'm even considering sunsetting some of the stuff that I thought was innovation, but really were just failures. And so overall, like I said, like really good year. I think then going into next year, I want to be a bit more balanced with my life personally to like lead towards more sustainability. But that's about it. Like I'm like excited about 2024.
Yeah, me
which
too.
Which is nice.
Yeah, 100%. I think I realized this year that like I fell in love with like the work itself. Like I hit the first, like I was always like, I would totally sell my company for like X dollars, and like just like it's just like a means to make money, really. Whereas now it's like I really hit the point where it's like I feel like this thing is like my baby, and like obviously I'd still sell it at a price. Like I'm not trying to kid, but I do understand I used to always hear like those stories of like, someone like sold their company and then they became like depressed because like they didn't know what to do with themselves. Whereas now I'm like I kind of understand that. Like it really feels like it's just like the most important thing to me. And so like I think I kind of hit that like inflection point this year of like it actually is something that like means a lot to me. So I'm excited for the new year for sure.
Nice. You got any like broad predictions about the new year?
Like
or specific?
In the world?
Or yourself, whatever you want, man.
Predictions?
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay.
Prediction. I mean, I have goals. I don't necessarily have predictions. You?
I've been thinking about some of the prediction stuff a little bit. Just go listen to the podcast, people talking about it. I have like a couple like jotted down here. I think ChatGPT is actually going to like accelerate aggressive.
Yeah.
In 2024, like I think it was we kind of hit this like peak, and then there was like a plateau, and then there was like even like more of a plateau coming to the end of the year. And I think it's just going to like ramp crazy in terms of like what AI means for like the world, and like specifically like white collar work and things like that. I think a lot of like some of the companies that were built off of ChatGPT are going to absolutely disappear, which I think everybody would kind of agree with. And I think there's going to be, what's kind of funny is like all of these are based on AI. I think there's going to be one big AI scare in 2024 that's not going to actually be a real scare, but it's going to feel like the end of the world for like 2 weeks. And I think then it's going to normalize.
Like
and
a COVID
then
scare?
COVID lasted fucking 3 years, but I think it's going to be something of like, something's going to happen. The powers that be are all going to be like, this is horrible, blah, blah, blah. People are going to like start changing all this kind of stuff. And then I think it's going to fizzle out, but I think there's going to be like a legitimate scare that potentially informs like a lot of the way that it moves forward in the future. Because I don't think we've had like a scare. I think we've had like a lot of optimism and a lot of like fear, but nothing that's like a tangible scare. I think there's going to be like one thing that completely gets disrupted, that we think is going to cascade and chain to a bunch of other things, but I think it's going to like just random, but I think it should be like, it's going to disrupt something drastically, and people are going to think it's going to mean that that's going to happen for everything. Predictions for myself in 2024. I don't know. I think going into this year, I'm like very aware of like who I am and what I want. Like, I think I had like a idealistic view of what I wanted for a long time, but I think now like I actually am like pretty clear on like exactly what I want. Similar to you, I've kind of like not I've always like loved work, but it was always like a means to an end thing.
Right.
I think what I've realized this year and being like, and in that process of like, oh, like my lifestyle could increase and choosing not to, and like still choosing to work just as hard is like, oh, like this is what I want to be doing no matter what. I've also like enjoyed doing this podcast as well. Like that's been a lot of fun. And so I want to like, my prediction for 2024 is that we reach 1 million downloads, 1 million total across all platforms.
I think this is a very like introspective episode.
Dude.
Like I feel like it's fun for us just to look back on.
Zach and Steve's therapy
Yeah, I know, right? Do you want to hear about the best purchase I made in 2023?
Sure.
Okay, so you know all those Twitter threads or whatever online where it's like, what's the best purchase for under $100?
Yeah.
And it's all like, you know, this
It's
random
a classic
shit.
Tim Ferriss podcast question.
Yeah, like, and I've never had an answer to that. I've always been like, nah, the good shit costs more than $100. Dude, so my new obsession is like just like looking for random shit on Amazon.
Okay.
And I found this egg cooker. You like boiled eggs?
Yeah.
Okay. This thing is like $30. And it's like this device that's like this big.
Okay.
And it just steams up water and makes perfectly boiled eggs. I don't know how it does it based on the amount of water you put in.
Okay.
You just like pour it in. You just drop
The eggs in.
the eggs in.
I've seen these.
Fully done. Takes like 8 minutes. It's like the perfect amount.
Of like what? Soft boiled, hard?
It's up to you.
What do
the
you
amount
like? Tell
of
me
water. I like soft boiled.
Okay.
But the amount of water you put decides that.
Okay.
And it literally takes less than it is the easiest thing to make. And then I supercharged it with a $10 device, which is like this plastic thing that peels it. And basically what you do is you just like put the egg in and shake it. And then all the shell just comes off in one pull. I can make boiled eggs in like the same amount of effort it takes to make a coffee.
I'm pissed you haven't invited me over for some eggs.
Dude, it's incrable. So now I have the answer to that question.
Okay, I'll fucking buy one.
And it's like $40 total.
Send me your affiliate link. I had like a question here for you, which is like what your sort of like maybe like favorite company was as a consumer in 2023. Maybe ours is the same. Like for me, it's like, and the way I look at this is like a company that I'm not going to change in 2024, and I'm not looking for alternatives. And it's like Factor meals have been like really great. I wish there was like potentially a premium option of like, you know what I'm saying? Like just like give me steak.
Yeah,
and
so
like not bullshit.
So,
but like even the bullshit ones are good. I just like wish I could have like I wish there was an option for like one that costs double.
Or breakfast.
I don't eat breakfast.
So annoying.
I don't eat
okay,
breakfast.
yeah,
What are
same,
you,
but
fucking
still
loser?
for lunch. But okay, so me and Harrison, my COO, we always eat Factor like every day for lunch. And we were doing like a work trip in Fort Lauderdale, and we're like, oh, let's just order Factor there so we don't like fall out of the routine. So we go to order it there, and they have like filet mignon. This like you just pay like extra $8 a meal. They've got breakfast,
and everything's better than US.
Everything like it was like, so they need to expand it here. So that's like 100% one I'm really happy with. Would I say I would never change? Like if there was another one,
if there's a better one, but like I am and content enough that I'm not seeking different options.
Mine is Arc browser. Have you used it?
Yeah, so I actually got into a fight with someone on Twitter yesterday about Arc browser.
Okay. Classic nerd fight.
I've used Arc browser. I haven't fully transitioned over. I think it's beautifully designed software. I really, really like it. I'll read you what he had said, and I'll read you what I had said.
So you're pro Arc?
I'm pro Arc.
Okay.
This motherfucker. So this guy says, "I love Arc. I hope they succeed, but." And so he quote tweets essentially like.
Wait, maybe we should quickly explain what Arc is. So,
okay, Arc browser is just like a browser that's just like really well thought through,
really well designed,
really well
new
designed
browser based on Chrome, but just a lot of like tools to make it better than Chrome.
Yeah, like it's a productivity person's browser as well as like I would say like someone who enjoys design's browser.
Right.
It's by this company called the Browser Company. And so the browser company yesterday tweeted out this video of them their CEO talking about the next version of Arc.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this like very like lifestyle type video, whatever. And this guy's tweet is essentially being like, every software company that has tried this type of hip and cool marketing has ultimately failed. And then he was just like, enduring software companies are generally designed to feel like boring utilities. Facebook, Twitter, Slack, superhuman. They sacrifice characters so that they can fill a vessel with their own soul. And then he said a bunch of other shit. And then I said to him, which I thought was just like such a stupid take. And I looked up who this guy was.
Take.
This guy sells legal software.
Right.
Okay. And I go, horrible take. To be fair, if the only thing more sterile than selling to lawyers is the government. So if this video didn't resonate with you, then it's perfect. And then I said, Frame.io has always had idealistic marketing. They sold for $1 billion. Salesforce has Matthew McConaughey as the brand ambassador. Figma has always been very quirky and sold for $1 billion. And let's not forget about Apple, or is that not enduring enough for you? Pointing out failed companies with good marketing as a way of saying that it's a signal of impending failure is retarded.
Yeah.
And I was just
Did he
like,
answer?
No, he didn't fucking answer. Of course he didn't answer, because like, what do you actually answer to that? But it's just like, I feel like there is this narrative, and I think we're on the same side of this, of people being like, ugly landing pages convert better, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, potentially in siloed experiments, that isn't exist, like that can exist. And I think you could make the argument that sometimes companies get distracted by these things, which
Right.
means that they can't service the thing that matters most. And I think that argument could be made. But using it as like a signal that really good marketing means that you're not building good product is just stupid.
Yeah, it is
It's just like, and like if you actually think about it, like what happens usually is that you have a product that's super niche with amazing branding, amazing marketing. And what happens is they have to dilute it to then create a larger TAM. And like as teams grow, like you can't have as much of a personality. And it's like, again, could that be the evolution of an enduring software company? Absolutely. But for like a really great browser who's like their main value prop is that they are good, like it's really great UI and like really productive. And it's like, their design is the feature that services their main mission, for their marketing to be anything other than that would be stupid. And so,
well, it sounds like they're going to make a computer though, aside from all of this. That's kind of what they alluded to.
they said that. I don't think that's what they're actually alluding to. I think
No?
that's what they want you to think. I mean, I think what they're going to do is create something. And I actually think I had this idea a little bit, and I had this idea when I first learned about Raycast. I think that there could be something that resembles a plane of glass that sits over an operating system that touches more than just the browser. And so in the same way that Raycast can touch a bunch of different places inside of your computer, like imagine if Arc set their same like level of like detail and like all and intentionality, not just to the browser, but to everything, and not in through application, but through interacting with other applications. Like I think that's what they're going towards. I don't think they're going to build hardware, but I could be wrong. Like they did specifically say like we want to build a new computer, but I think if you even look at like Apple and all that, and like these companies that they're building their own processors, like actually the hardware is not becoming that important anymore. Like we have more processing power than we almost like need to on an individual level. And so I think they might be building kind of like I don't want to call it a skin because that sounds like a horrible experience.
Like an OS.
But an OS, but that sits on top of yeah,
whatever, Mac
or Windows or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a possibility.
I literally messaged their CEO from, like, I connect with them on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, if you guys are ever looking for investment, like as a user, I'd love to, whatever. I think Arc made a browser like as good as it can be. Especially if you fully switch to it.
I haven't fully switched yet
to go back.
Okay, damn.
Yeah, like
sweet.
It is. Really
I mean, potentially what they could be thinking about too is like maybe like even like another sort of computing platform. And like I'm thinking like potentially it's AR. That's still built on top of Mac or Windows or whatever it is, but like maybe it's like an AR play. like thinking about like, you know, Apple Vision Pro and like all that kind of stuff. Like that's a product I'm incredibly excited about. The moment that it's available, you can buy it. I'm buying it.
The Apple goggles?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, fuck that.
No, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you why you want them. One, I mean, I'm not like a gamer. I'm not like I don't consume a lot of entertainment. Imagine you get onto a flight and you
That's
put on
the only use case I can think of. But
yes,
okay, go
but
on.
that can exist in a bunch of different like parts of your life.
Okay.
And like you just are in your office, or like I used to travel with a 27-inch monitor when I was nomadic, everywhere I went, because I wanted like a consistent setup. If I could just like have this thing in like my backpack that like creates not just like a consistent setup, but a consistent environment. And like I work in this consistent environment every single day. I can optimize this environment, like small tweaks, whether it's like lighting or like music or like whatever, like whatever is like, I'm excited for what it means for like work and like productivity and like areas that I can curate my environment, that I can curate my environment with like limited input is what I'm excited for, or like limited like work.
So now we have opposite predictions now for 2024.
Okay.
I think maybe that product works in some niche, whether it be gaming or something. I'm going to bet on it failing as a mainstream product in 2024.
Oh, I don't think that this version of the Apple Vision Pro is going to be a mainstream product. The pricing doesn't even align with it being a mainstream product. It's like $4,000. It's more than a MacBook Pro.
But if it's what you're saying, if it's your office.
No, because you can always make. I love this MacBook Pro. At the end of the day, this is never going to be a mainstream product.
MacBook Pro is a mainstream.
No. MacBook Air is a mainstream product.
MacBooks are mainstream products. I don't think, forget this Apple Vision. I don't think VR goggles of any kind will ever be a mainstream product.
Okay. Potentially.
I just think unless it can somehow read your mind and it can get input through that, I just don't see a way to interact with it that makes sense.
So I've heard a bunch of people that have used the Apple Vision Pro at like the demo days be like, this is the best UI experience I've ever used in my entire life.
I think they're just saying that.
What, you think you're paid off by Tim Cook?
Yeah.
Tim Cook's
they're all
yanking them off behind the dumpster.
They're
out back?
drinking the Kool-Aid.
All right.
I could be wrong, but I'm.
If there's one company that could figure it out, who is it?
Not Apple.
You don't think so? Who would it
Not
be?
anymore. I think Apple's lost its touch with that. I think Apple's new products since post Steve Jobs, like.
Do you think that they haven't created a new product since Steve Jobs? Because I think that's
they have.
What?
They've created the HomePod.
Okay.
They've, which you can argue is a failure.
I would agree. Yeah, it's just whatever. Yeah.
They created the Apple Watch. I think that's post Steve Jobs. Yeah, it is.
You think the Apple Watch is a failure? I think they're a pretty significant market share.
Yeah.
For smartwatches.
Yeah. It for who Apple is and how mainstream like the phone is, for example, it's like, does anyone in my personal life wear an Apple Watch every day? No. Based on like everyone I know has an iPhone. Not that it has to reach that same level of success. What else have they put out?
AirPods is a good one.
Yeah. Is that a new product, or are those Bluetooth like they've done an amazing job of like getting way more money for earphones, where like they used to be just standard like $30.
Yeah, I mean, like I think there's a lot of people that caught up to the AirPods, but for like a while it was very hard to find an AirPods alternative.
Right, but was it a new product or was it Bluetooth earphones?
You could say the same about like VR goggles or like laptops, or like they weren't the first people to create tablets, and the iPad was a great product. They weren't the first people to create an MP3 player, and like the iPod was a good product.
Right.
I don't think that net new product is like Apple's forte. It's like creating the best version of like where like society is going. And I think I agree. Like I long for the Steve Jobs version of Apple. But I also think that you could also make the argument. I don't know if it's 100% that you can just be like, oh, because Steve Jobs left and it's not as good as it once was, that it can't be as great as it once was. I mean, I think Tim Cook's a bit of a dweeb, and I think he like lacks everything. Like, I think he's the least visionary person in the entire world. Like, dude, to be fair, but you need to give him respect. Like the story about Tim Cook joining Apple is actually crazy. I don't know if have you heard the supply chain story?
Yeah.
Like before Apple, like they had one of the most amazing supply chains in the world, and they were world renowned because they were able to get products off of so like their average time to get a product off this manufacturing line in China into a customer's hands through retail means was around 30 days, which was like better than any other company in the entire world. And then Tim Cook joined Apple and then made it 3 days. So like he like improved it by like an order of magnitude. And so he's obviously like a talented, like super smart guy. He's just not like a product visionary.
Right.
But like again, like what other technological innovation has like really like changed the world since Steve Jobs has died? Like you can make the argument that like Elon with electric cars, like that's been like a massive like industry shift. You can make the argument with like ChatGPT and AI, like that could have been Siri, right?
Yeah,
like that's entirely possible. But I don't think that you can be on top forever. But there's like a lot of examples of people that were on top, they kind of like drop down and they become on they kind of like summit once again. And so I don't know. I'm always going to be in Apple's corner. I don't think I would ever bet against them. There's no tech company that I would prefer to buy products from still to this day. And that's 100%. Not just because of Steve Jobs. So, I mean, they still get my bet for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Time will tell. It takes a long time for a leader to fall off.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think like the AI side, they've missed the mark.
Yeah.
And so like, what could the iPhone be if like there were years, of working with like a ChatGPT type like interface within the phone. So yeah, I mean, I'm not against Apple.
I also feel like, I don't know if the ChatGPT thing is going to be like a zero sum game. Like it's crazy when you think about how transformative ChatGPT was and then how many competent counterparts have come up within months, like
the Grok,
Bard, like, what I'm saying? Like, this was the most amazing technological innovation. And like, they definitely got like a bit of a lead. And the
Grok one shocks me because I'm pretty sure he started that like 5-6 months ago.
Yeah. It's insane.
It's like comparative to ChatGPT. Right. I mean, I haven't actually used it, but like,
I think I think ChatGPT could be like a 4-minute mile type thing. I mean, this goes against my 2024 predictions, but like, I mean, generally, when I say GPT, I think I was like even like saying like AI in general, like this like chat-based interface AI, like large language models, whatever. Yeah, I just wouldn't bet against Apple. Like they still get I spend more money out of any company in the entire world. I spend more money with Apple on a yearly basis than any other company consistently since I was 18 years old.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think they're still kicking.
Yeah, they'll be around.
What do you got here about G2? That seems boring.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of more for a traditional episode. Maybe I save it for.
All right, saving it. Put in the back pocket. Let's wrap it up.
That pretty much covers it.
All right, sweet. Well, that's been the last episode of 2023 Done This Week podcast. Please help make my vision of 1 million downloads by the end of 2024 come true in any way you can. We'll see you in the new year.